Disclaimer. Watch at your own risk. Tonight, we drift into the darkest corners of human history. In the quiet Austrian town of Amstetten, Josef Fritzl, a 73-year-old retired electrician, lived a double life that concealed one of the most horrific crimes in modern history, imprisoning his daughter Elizabeth in a hidden cellar for 24 years, raping her over 3,000 times, and fathering 7 children with her. Born on April 9, 1935, in Amstetten, Fritzl grew up under Nazi occupation, enduring an abusive mother who beat him severely, shaping his controlling and sadistic nature. He married Rosemarie Janda in 1956, fathering 7 children, including Elizabeth. Born in 1966, Fritzl's descent began early. In 1967, at 32, he raped a 24-year-old nurse at knife point in Linz, breaking into her home, binding her, and assaulting her for hours before fleeing. Convicted, he served 18 months, but his record was expunged under Austrian law after 15 years, allowing him to hide his past. By the 1970s, Fritzl targeted Elizabeth, abusing her from age 11, groping her breasts, forcing oral sex in the family home, while Rosemary turned a blind eye. At 12, he raped her vaginally in her bedroom, pinning her down as she cried, his hand over her mouth to stifle screams. The assaults escalated. By 16, Elizabeth ran away briefly, but was returned by police whom Fritzl manipulated. In 1984, at 18, Fritzl lured her to the basement under the pretense of helping with a door. He drugged her with ether-soaked rags, rendering her unconscious, then chained her to a pole in a 600-square-foot cellar he built himself, soundproof, with concrete walls, a washing machine, fridge, and bed. For the first 9 months, she was confined to a 5-by-5-foot room, raped daily. Fritzl entering through a 660-pound steel door, forcing intercourse, sodomy, and oral acts, often leaving her bound for days in her own filth. His motive was total domination, viewing Elizabeth as a sexual slave to fulfill fantasies suppressed in his marriage. Over 24 years, he expanded the cellar, installing plumbing and electricity, but the abuse never stopped. Explicit acts, like forcing her to reenact pornographic scenes, beating her with belts until welts formed, and impregnating her repeatedly. What made Fritzl's crimes unforgettable was the grotesque duality of his life above and below ground, a signature of psychological torment blended with physical horror. Upstairs, he maintained a facade as a devoted family man, running an electrical business and raising his legitimate children with Rosemary, who claimed ignorance despite hearing cries. Downstairs, Elizabeth endured a living hell. Raped up to 3 times a week, her body battered, bruises on her thighs from forced positions, vaginal tears from rough penetration, and pregnancies that left her malnourished. She gave birth to 7 children alone on the concrete floor. Kirsten, 1989, Stefan, 1990, Lisa, 1992, Monica, 1994, and Felix, 2002. 3, Lisa, Monica, Alexander, were taken upstairs as foundlings left on the doorstep, raised by Fritzl and Rosemary as their own. The other 4, Kirsten, Stefan, Felix, and Elizabeth, remained imprisoned, never seeing sunlight, surviving on canned food and TV for education. Fritzl's explicit control extended to incestuous family dynamics. He raped Elizabeth in front of the children, forcing her to cook naked and beat them with tools, once smashing Stefan's head against a wall for crying, blood trickling down. The cellar reeked of mold, urine, and sweat. Rats scurried, and air was stale from a single vent. Elizabeth taught her children to read using smuggled books, but Fritzl threatened to gas them if they misbehaved, installing a fake system. His visits were rituals of terror, entering at night, selecting Elizabeth for sex while children huddled, her moans muffled by a gag. This signature wasn't just captivity. It was engineered psychological erasure, turning Elizabeth into a broken vessel for his progeny, her identity stripped as he called her his second wife. Fritzl's ability to evade detection for 24 years was as calculated as his crimes, exploiting Austrian bureaucracy, family complicity, and societal norms. He built the cellar in the 1970s under his home at IBB Strasse 40, securing permits by claiming it a nuclear shelter, hiding the entrance behind a shelf in his workshop. The 1.5-ton concrete door required a code only he knew. He, Rosemary, and his children lived upstairs, but he forbade entry to the basement, enforcing obedience through intimidation, once beating a son for questioning. Neighbors saw him as eccentric but harmless, a landlord who rented apartments in the house. Elizabeth's disappearance was staged. Fritzl forced her to write letters claiming she joined a cult, which he found and showed police. Authorities accepted this, closing her file despite her history of abuse reports. During inspections for his guest house business, officials never probed the basement. Fritzl collected child benefits for the foundlings, pocketing thousands. He traveled freely, vacationing in Thailand for sex tourism, while Elizabeth managed the children alone, rationing food. His evasion relied on gaslighting, telling Elizabeth the door was electrified, threatening to abandon them to starve. Social workers visited for the upstairs children, but never suspected. Even when Kirsten was born comatose in 1989, Fritzl left her on the doorstep with a note from Elizabeth, fooling authorities again. This web of lies and isolation kept the secret buried, exploiting post-war Austria's deference to patriarchal authority. The unmasking began on April 19, 2008, when 19-year-old Kirsten fell unconscious from kidney failure, her body ravaged by inbreeding and malnutrition. Fritzl, panicking, took her to Amstetten Hospital, claiming she was a foundling with a note from Elizabeth. Doctors, suspicious of her condition, severe organ damage from vitamin D deficiency and incest-related defects, alerted police. On April 26, Fritzl brought Elizabeth and Felix upstairs for questioning. Elizabeth, 42 and broken, confessed after assurances of safety. Police raided the cellar, finding Stefan and the hidden door. The world recoiled. Elizabeth, pale and toothless from malnutrition, detailed 24 years of rape, over 3,000 assaults, and births without medical aid. DNA confirmed Fritzl as father to all seven. Arrested that day, he initially denied, but confessed on April 28 after seeing Elizabeth's taped statement. The trial in March 2009 in St. Polten was swift, charged with murder for baby Michael's death, rape, incest, coercion, false imprisonment, and enslavement. Fritzl pleaded guilty, sentenced to life in a psychiatric facility. Explicit evidence included videos. He forced Elizabeth to make and sell her photos, showing the cramped horror. Fritzl's final fate is confinement in Garston Abbey Prison, adapted for mentally ill offenders, where at 90 in 2025, he suffers dementia and isolation. In 2024, a parole board deemed him no longer dangerous, approving transfer to a nursing home. But appeals delayed it. He changed his name to Meyerhoff in 2012 for safety. Elizabeth and her children live anonymously in a secret Austrian village, supported by the state. Therapy helping them adjust. Those scars remain. Kirsten in a coma for months, now recovered but disabled. Stefan agoraphobic from never seeing outdoors. Rosemarie divorced Fritzl, claiming ignorance, but questions linger. The house was sealed, its cellar filled with concrete. Fritzl's death will end his story, but relief is tempered by the horror scale. 24 years undetected, a family destroyed. Unease persists. How many hidden cellars exist, secrets buried under normal homes? As the rain taps softly against the window, the cellar's damp walls fade into darkness. The chains rattle, growing quiet. But another door creaks open, a father's voice calling from below, drawing us into the next abyss. On April 9, 2018, in Laredo, Texas, Ronald Anthony Burgos Aviles, a 33-year-old supervisory U.S. Border Patrol agent, executed a calculated but flawed plan to murder his lover, 27-year-old Griselda Hernandez, and their 20-month-old son, Dominic Alexander Hernandez, in Father McNabeau Park. Staging the scene to appear as a random crime he discovered while on patrol. Born in 1985, Burgos Aviles was a 9-year veteran of the Laredo Border Patrol, respected for his supervisory role and outwardly stable life with a wife and 2 children. Beneath this facade, he maintained a secret affair with Griselda, a former lover, who had recently served him child support papers, threatening his marriage and career. The motive was clear. Griselda's demand for financial support for Dominic, confirmed as his son via a paternity test, pushed Burgos Aviles to eliminate what he saw as a threat. His descent into murder was driven by panic and control, exploiting his law enforcement training to orchestrate a cover-up, only to unravel under the weight of his own mistakes and overwhelming evidence. The crime's signature was its brutal efficiency and grotesque staging, designed to erase evidence through sheer violence. Burgos Aviles lured Griselda to the park under the pretense of meeting to discuss Dominic's health. She had told him the toddler was ill and struggling to walk. Around 9:45 a.m., as she arrived with Dominic in a stroller, he ambushed her in a secluded area near the Rio Grande. Using his service knife, he stabbed Griselda 27 times, slashes to her head, shoulders, arms, wrists, hands, back, and ear, each wound deep, tearing through muscle and sinew, blood spraying and pooling on the dirt. Her face was nearly unrecognizable, skull fractured from blows, wrists broken as she fought to protect herself. Overpowered, she collapsed, her body a mass of gaping wounds. Turning to Dominic, strapped in the stroller, Burgos Aviles lifted the boy's green Baby Yoda t-shirt and stabbed him in the chest, the blade piercing his heart, blood soaking the fabric. He then slit the toddler's throat, severing the jugular, ensuring death as the boy's tiny body went limp. The stroller's straps bore Griselda's blood, and a belt keeper from Burgos Avila's uniform, flecked with her blood, fell to the ground. To stage the scene, he scattered their belongings, an empty stroller, a phone, suggesting a robbery gone wrong, then called 911 at 10:10 a.m., reporting had found 2 bodies while on patrol. His voice, calm but rehearsed, betrayed no panic, a chilling contrast to the carnage. The explicit violence, 27 stab wounds to Griselda, fatal slashes to Dominic, was meant to obliterate them as threats, but forensic traces like blood on his patrol unit's tailgate, Dominic's, and belt keeper, Griselda's, would undo him. Burgos Avila's attempt to evade suspicion was bold, but collapsed almost instantly, his law enforcement knowledge backfiring against him. As a border patrol supervisor, he knew crime scene protocols and tried to exploit them. After the murders, he drove his unit, K6619, to his home, captured on a neighbor's camera changing from his uniform to shorts, then back, likely to dispose of bloody clothes. He returned to the park, radioing colleagues to assist, positioning himself as the discoverer. But his plan crumbled under scrutiny. Cell phone data placed both his and Griselda's phones at the park during the murder window, 9:49, 10 a.m., contradicting his timeline. Surveillance footage from nearby homes and a park camera showed his erratic movements, driving away, returning, then calling for help. Blood on his patrol unit's tailgate and floorboard, confirmed as Dominic's and Griselda's via DNA, linked him directly. His behavior at the scene, pale, wide-eyed, holding a prepared statement, as noted by Detective Raimundo Garcia, raised red flag. Within hours, Laredo police, led by Chief Claudio Trevino, identified him as a suspect, his 911 call and presence at the scene betraying him. Arrested that day, his lies unraveled. He claimed Griselda was a stranger, but texts showed their affair, her child support demands, and his anger. A letter from the Texas Attorney General's office, dated March 13, 2018, found in his possession, ordered child support payments, cementing his motive. His training, meant to aid his deception, instead highlighted his errors, failing to account for GPS in his unit, blood traces, and digital forensics. The trial, beginning June 26, 2023, in Laredo's 49th District Court before Judge Joe Lopez, exposed Burgos Avila's guilt through meticulous evidence and emotional testimony. Prosecutors, led by Webb County District Attorney Isidro Chilo Alanais, presented a timeline built on cell data, GPS, and surveillance, showing Burgos Avila's at the park during the murders. Forensic evidence was damning. Griselda's blood on the belt keeper, Dominic's on the tailgate, and DNA confirming Burgos Avila's as the father with 99.99% certainty. Witnesses, including Griselda's sister Angelica Hernandez, testified to the affair's strain. Griselda used student loans for daycare, receiving no support from Burgos Avila's, who hid the relationship from his wife, Amy. Alanese argued Burgos Avila's saw Dominic as his biggest threat, fearing exposure. The prosecution played explicit jailhouse calls where Burgos Avila's showed no remorse, joking with Amy while dismissing the murder. Over 20 witnesses, including forensic experts and Border Patrol agent Francisco Lara, who broke down recalling his supervisor's betrayal, painted a vivid picture. The defense, led by Eddie Pena, claimed innocence, arguing GPS wasn't conclusive but offered no alibi. On July 6th, after 7 days, the jury convicted Burgos Aviles of 2 counts of capital murder, killing multiple persons and a child under 10, facing life without parole or death. The penalty phase, July 7-17, saw prosecutors push for execution, citing his danger to society. Defense attorney William Boggs begged for life, noting he'd die in prison either way. On July 18th, after 9 hours, the jury chose life without parole, sentencing him to 2 consecutive life terms at Huntsville State Penitentiary. Victim impact statements were wrenching. Griselda's mother, Mary, told Burgos Aviles, "I hope you see Griselda and Dominic fighting for their lives. Every time you close your eyes," her voice breaking as she clutched their photos. Burgos Aviles' fate is sealed in a Texas cell, but the case's ripples endure. Now 40 in 2025, he's appealed, filing for a new trial on August 26, 2023, claiming the verdict defied evidence, but District Attorney Alanis dismissed it, deferring to the court. The appeal, handled by attorney Raul Schoenemann, focuses on potential trial errors like jury instructions, but faces long odds. Appellate courts rarely overturn without clear mistake. Griselda, a nursing student with dreams like her sister Angelica, and Dominic, a toddler in a Baby Yoda shirt, were buried in Laredo's Calvary Catholic Cemetery, a memorial at Father McNeveau Park marking their loss. The case, covered by Court TV and Laredo Morning Times, exposed Burgos Aviles' betrayal of his badge, hiding behind it, as Alanis said. His wife, Amy, divorced him, raising their children alone. The community reeled, Laredo's trust in Border Patrol shaken. Relief comes from the swift conviction, but unease lingers. How did a trusted agent turn murderer, nearly escaping? The park's quiet trails whisper of justice served, yet scars remain. As rain falls softly, the blood-soaked dirt fades. A mother and sons cry silence, but another badge gleams, hiding dark intent, waiting for the next betrayal. In 28, Joseph Youngman's son, better known as Joe's son, the former mixed martial artist and actor who portrayed the shoe-throwing henchman Random Task in the 1997 film Austin Powers, international man of mystery, found himself in a Huntington Beach, California, police interrogation room, facing questions about a brutal 1990 gang rape that had remained unsolved for nearly 2 decades. Born November 20th, 1970, in Gwangju, South Korea, Sun moved to the USA as a child, growing up in a fractured environment that shaped his violent tendencies. His brief career in mixed martial arts, MMA, with the Ultimate Fighting Championship, UFC, and K1 kickboxing, was marked by a 0-4 record, most notably losing at UFC 4 in 1994 to Keith Hackney, who pummeled Sun's groin repeatedly in a legal move, forcing a submission. As an actor, Sun's role as Random Task, a parody of James Bond's Oddjob, was his most prominent, alongside low-budget action films like Joshua Tree, 1993, and Shoot Fighter 2, 1996. But beneath this public persona lay a dark secret. On Christmas Eve, 1990, Sun, alongside accomplice Santiago Lopez Gaitan, committed a heinous gang rape, torturing a 19-year-old woman in Huntington Beach. His 2008 interrogation, triggered by a DNA match, exposed the chilling details of his crime, leading to his conviction in 2011 and a life sentence, cementing his infamy as a predator who hid behind a veneer of fame. All the crime's signature was its sadistic brutality, executed with calculated intent to terrorize and degrade. On December 24, 1990, at around 12:30 a.m., the victim, a 19-year-old woman identified in court as Virginia C.C., was walking her dog near her Huntington Beach apartment, admiring Christmas lights. Son, then 20, and Gaitan, his high school friend, approached her, with Son asking for directions to distract her. As she responded, they grabbed her, dragged her to their car at gunpoint, and threw her into the back seat. Inside, the assault was relentless. Son pistol whipped her, the gun's metal cracking against her skull, drawing blood as she screamed. They threatened to kill her, counting bullets aloud to intensify her fear, and carried out a mock execution, pressing the gun to her temple. Son raped her repeatedly, vaginal and anal penetration, forcing oral copulation, while Gaitan held her down. The explicit violence escalated. Son penetrated her vagina with the firearm, tearing tissue, and both men took turns sodomizing her body bruised and bleeding from the assault. After hours of torture, they pushed her out naked, tying her pants around her eyes as a blindfold, and drove off, with Son callously saying, "It's Christmas." The victim, left battered on the street, reported the crime, but with limited DNA technology and unrecognizable composite sketches, the case went cold. Investigators collected DNA from her body, but the database in 1990 was too small to yield a match. Son's interrogation on October 7, 2008, by Huntington Beach Police Department detectives was a pivotal moment, revealing his arrogance and denial. The interrogation, later released in parts and cited in court documents, showcased Son's attempt to maintain his fading celebrity persona while deflecting guilt. His arrest came after a May 2008 guilty plea for felony vandalism, kicking in a roommate's car door, for which he was required to provide a DNA sample as a condition of probate. On August 18, 2008, while serving 90 days for a probation violation, failing to report his residence, his DNA matched the 1990 rape case, leading to his detention at Theo Lacey facility. In the interrogation room, Son, then 38, sat with a smug demeanor, his 5'4". Detectives confronted him with the DNA evidence detailing the Christmas Eve assault, the pistol whipping, the rapes, the firearm penetration. Son denied everything, claiming he was a family man and touting his acting career, name-dropping Austin Powers and his UFC days. "I'm random task, man. I throw shoes," he said, grinning as if his minor fame could deflect the accusations. He insisted he had no contact with the victim, denying any presence in Huntington Beach that night, but his voice cracked when pressed about the DNA. Detectives noted his body language, shifting eyes, clenched fists, betraying nervousness. He claimed the DNA was a mistake, suggesting someone framed him, but offered no explanation for how his genetic material matched the crime scene. When shown composite sketches resembling him, he laughed them off, saying, "That could be anybody." He laughed them off. The interrogation lasted hours, with Son's denials growing weaker as detectives laid out the victim's account. Her screams, the gun's cold barrel, the blood and bruises. He stuck to his story, unaware that Gaetan, arrested in 2009 after DNA and sketches linked him, would later confess, implicating Son. Son's ability to evade justice for 18 years relied on the era's forensic limitations and his public persona. In the 1990s, DNA databases were nascent, and the 1990 sample couldn't be matched until California expanded its database in the 2000s. Son continued his MAA and acting career, appearing in films and even wrestling in Japan for All of Japan Pro Wrestling and Hustle, all while hiding his crime. His 2008 vandalism arrest was a fluke. Had he not violated probation, the DNA sample might never have been collected. During the interrogation, he tried to leverage his minor celebrity, but detectives were unmoved, focusing on the victim's trauma, her PTSD, her fear of hands grabbing her from behind, her lost job and college savings. The case broke open when Gaetan, identified through sketches paired with Son's photo, confessed in 2011 to kidnapping, rape, and sodomy, receiving 17 years and 4 months. Son's interrogation denials crumbled under the DNA evidence and Gaetan's testimony, leading to his arrest on October 7, 2008, with charges including 5 counts of rape, 2 counts of forcible sodomy, 7 counts of forcible oral copulation, 7 counts of forcible oral copulation, and 1 count of sexual penetration by a foreign object, facing up to 275 years. The trial, starting August 2011 in Orange County Superior Court, was a reckoning. Initial charges were dropped due to a statute of limitations on sexual assault and kidnapping, but prosecutors charged Son with conspiracy to commit murder and torture, crimes without a time limit. The victim, now in her 40s, testified vividly, recounting the pistol whipping, the repeated rapes, and Son's chilling words. She described debilitating PTSD, saying, "My 20s were stripped from me. I relearned how to walk, see, hear, and cope." The prosecution, led by the Orange County District Attorney's Office, presented DNA evidence, Gaetan's confession, and Son's interrogation video, where his flippant demeanor contrasted with the crime's gravity. Son maintained his innocence, but on September 19, 2011, he was convicted of 1 felony count of torture, sentenced to 7 years to life. Less than a month later, on October 10, 2011, Son killed his cellmate, Michael Graham, at Wasco State Prison, beating him to death with blunt force trauma. Charged with murder in 2013, he was convicted of voluntary manslaughter in 2017, adding 27 years to his sentence. The trial exposed Son's predatory nature, his lack of remorse evident in jail calls, where he joked about his fame. Now 54, in 2025, Son remains incarcerated at Richard J. Donovan Correctional Facility in San Diego County. His appeals exhausted. The case, covered by CBS News and Sheerdog, shocked fans who knew him as Random Task or the flamboyant UFC fighter in a leopard thong. The victim's survival and testimony brought some relief. But the case's horror, 18 years undetected, a second murder in prison, leaves unease. How did a public figure hide such evil? The landfill of his past fights and films buries a truth too grim to forget. As rain falls softly, the interrogation room's silence masks a predator's lies. His laughter faded. Another mask waits, hiding violence behind a smile. On December 20th, 2013, John Chakalos, an 87-year-old real estate magnate worth nearly $50, was found dead in his Windsor, Connecticut home, shot twice in the head and once in the stomach with a Sig Sauer rifle. 3 years later, on September 18, 2016, his daughter Linda Carmen, 54, vanished at sea during a fishing trip off Rhode Island with her son, Nathan Carmen, then 22. Nathan, the prime suspect in both cases, was accused of orchestrating these killings to secure a massive inheritance from his grandfather's estate. The explicit brutality of Chakalos' murder and the chilling mystery of Linda's disappearance, coupled with Nathan's calculated cover-up, paint a portrait of a troubled young man driven by greed, mental instability, and a fractured family dynamic. His death by suicide in 2023, while awaiting trial, left the case unresolved. But the evidence, DNA, ballistics, witness accounts, and Nathan's own contradictory statements points to a chilling scheme that shocked New England and exposed the dark underbelly of a wealthy dynasty. The signature of these crimes lies in their cold, calculated execution, masked by Nathan's seemingly innocuous persona. On the night of December 19, 2013, Nathan, then 19, dined with his grandfather at a Greek restaurant on the Berlin Turnpike in Newington, Connecticut. Chakalos, a widower who amassed his fortune building nursing homes, doted on Nathan, his first male grandson, showering him with money and attention despite Nathan's struggles with Asperger's syndrome. They returned to Chakalos' home on Overlook Drive by 8:30 p.m., where Nathan allegedly lingered until his grandfather's lover called, interrupting their conversation. After a brief goodbye, Nathan left, or so he claimed. Hours later, around 3 a.m., Chakalos was shot in his sleep, the rifle blasts shattering his skull and abdomen, blood soaking the king-size bed. The scene was gruesome. Brain matter splattered on the headboard, the body slumped in a pool of crimson. No valuables were taken, suggesting a personal motive. Nathan, the last person to see Chakalos alive, purchased a Sig Sauer rifle weeks earlier in New Hampshire, but told police he lost it, a claim investigators found implausible. He also discarded his computer hard drive and truck's GPS unit, erasing potential evidence of his movements that night. The second crime, Linda Carmen's disappearance, was equally sinister. On September 17, 2016, Nathan, now 22, invited his mother, Linda, for a fishing trip on his 31-foot boat, Chicken Pox, departing from Ram Point Marina in South Kingstown, Rhode Island. Linda, who rarely fished and feared the water, joined to bond with her son, from whom she was estranged after her divorce from Clark Carmen. Prosecutors allege Nathan tampered with the boat, removing bulkheads and drilling holes in the transom, ensuring it would sink. Around midnight, the vessel began taking on water off Block Island. Nathan claimed he was fixing a mechanical issue when the boat capsized, leaving him in a life raft with emergency supplies, but without Linda, whose body was never found. The explicit horror lies in the premeditation. Nathan allegedly left his mother to drown, her screams swallowed by the Atlantic as the boat sank. He was rescued 8 days later, 100 nautical miles off Martha's Vineyard. by a Chinese freighter, the Orient Lucky. His account, claiming he didn't see or hear Linda after the boat gave way, was riddled with inconsistency. Oceanographer Richard Limeburner testified that Nathan's claim of drifting eastward contradicted ocean currents, which would have carried him west. Nathan's prompt filing of an $85,000 insurance claim for the boat further raised suspicions of a planned sinking. Nathan's interrogations, particularly after Linda's disappearance, revealed a calculated attempt to deflect guilt. In 2016, South Kingstown Police Deputy Chief Alfred Buckle interviewed Nathan shortly after his rescue. An audio recording later aired by ABC's 2020. Nathan, calm and composed, described grabbing emergency gear as the boat flooded, insisting he told Linda to reel in fishing lines before the vessel sank. He claimed he didn't see her in the water, despite their proximity, and failed to activate the boat's emergency beacon, saying it was too late. Detectives pressed him on the boat's condition, noting a witness, Mike Iazzi, saw Nathan drilling holes in the transom hours before departure, compromising the vessel's stability. Nathan dismissed this, claiming he was removing unnecessary trim tabs. His demeanor, detached, almost rehearsed, clashed with the gravity of losing his mother. In 2013, Windsor police questioned Nathan about Chakalos murder, focusing on his rifle purchase and missing GPS. He admitted buying the Sig Sauer for protection, but claimed it vanished, refusing to elaborate and invoking his Fifth Amendment right. His alibi for the night of the murder had a 1-hour gap, unaccounted for, when he claimed to be driving to meet Linda for a fishing trip, but got lost. The explicit destruction of evidence, his hard drive and GPS, suggested a cover-up, while ballistics confirmed the murder weapon matched the rifle he owned. In 2022, federal prosecutors in Vermont interrogated Nathan again after his indictment for Linda's murder and fraud. They presented damning evidence: the rifle purchase, the boat's tampering, and a text from Linda to a family member uncovered by attorney Martin Manella, threatening to blow her father's F-ing head off, though not taken seriously. Nathan maintained his innocence, portraying himself as a grieving son and grandson, but his contradictions, claiming ignorance of the boat's defects, yet admitting to repairs, weakened his defense. The interrogation's intensity, with prosecutors detailing the rifle shots and Linda's likely drowning, reportedly left Nathan visibly shaken, though he stuck to his denial. Nathan evaded justice for years due to investigative gaps and lack of physical evidence. In 2013, Windsor police drafted an arrest warrant for Chakalos' murder, but a state prosecutor declined to sign it, citing insufficient evidence without the murder weapon or GPS data. The absence of a body in Linda's case further complicated charges, as prosecutors needed to prove murder without remains. Nathan's inheritance of $550,000 from Chakalos' bank accounts allowed him to relocate to Vernon, Vermont in 2014, where he lived unemployed, burning through funds. His aunts, Charlene Gallagher, Valerie Santilli, and Elaine Chakalos, suspected him from the start, filing a 2017 lawsuit to block his access to the $7 million trust fund tied to Linda's share. They pointed to his history of mental instability and a neighbor's claim that Nathan was a time bomb. A 2014 search of his Middletown apartment uncovered a tactical shotgun, ammunition, and notes on sniper rifles and explosives, but no Sig Sauer, allowing him to slip through. 40. The insurance claim denial in 2019 after a judge ruled Nathan's boat repairs were faulty, bolstered suspicions, but didn't lead to immediate charges. Only in 2022, after a federal grand jury indictment, was Nathan arrested for Linda's murder and fraud, with Chakalos killing cited as part of the scheme, but not charged due to jurisdictional limits. Nathan's trial, set for October 2023, never occurred. On June 15, 2023, he died by suicide in his cell at Cheshire County Corrections in Keene, New Hampshire, leaving a note whose contents remain undisclosed. He faced 8 counts, first-degree murder for Linda's death, and multiple fraud charges for misrepresenting the boat sinking and Chakalos estate. The prosecution's case, detailed in a May 2022 indictment, alleged Nathan killed Chakalos to access $550,000, then murdered Linda when funds dwindled, aiming for her $7 share. Evidence included the rifle purchase, boat tampering, and intercepted family disputes over the truck. A key witness, Joy Washburn, caretaker of Chakalos, New Hampshire estate, told author Casey Sherman a family associate offered her $10,000 to kill Chakalos in a staged hunting accident weeks before his death, a claim the FBI deemed credible but unlinked to Nathan. The explicit violence, Chakalos' head blown apart, Linda's likely struggle as water filled her lungs, haunted the case. Nathan's aunts attended his funeral, calling him a troubled soul, but believed he killed both victims. The estate remains in probate, with no inheritance distributed. As of August 15, 2025, Chakalos' murder remains unsolved. The Windsor police keep the case active. Linda's death, classified as murder, lacks closure without her body. The case, covered by People, ABC News, and Sherman's Blood in the Water, 2025, exposed a family fractured by wealth and Nathan's enigmatic nature, both victim of his Asperger's and villain in his alleged greed. Relief comes from his aunt's efforts to block his inheritance, but unease persists. How many secrets died with Nathan? The Atlantic's depths and Windsor's blood-stained bedroom hold truths forever lost. As rain falls softly, a life raft drifts empty, and a mansion's silence hides a killer's steps. Another fortune waits, tempting betrayal. Tell me a J, got a timeline, to betrayal. In the summer of 1986, in Auburn, Washington, Stella Maudine Nickel, a 42-year-old security screener at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, orchestrated a chilling plot to murder her husband, Bruce Nickel, by lacing Excedrin capsules with cyanide, a crime initially masked as a natural death. Born August 7, 1943, in Colton, Oregon, Stella grew up in poverty, her early life marked by instability, giving birth to her first daughter, Cynthia Hamilton, at 16, and racking up convictions for fraud in 1968, child abuse in 1969, child abuse in 1969, and forgery in 1971. She married Bruce, a heavy equipment operator, in 1976, but their marriage soured as Bruce sobered up from alcoholism, curbing Stella's bar-hopping lifestyle. By 1985, driven by a desire to escape a debt-ridden marriage and collect $176,000 in life insurance, including $100,000 for accidental death. Stella began planning his murder, inspired by the unsolved 1982 Chicago Tylenol killings. Her descent was calculated, rooted in greed and a willingness to kill not just Bruce, but an innocent stranger, Sue Snow, to cover her tracks, exploiting the era's lax product safety law. The crime's signature was its deceptive precision, blending domestic betrayal with cold-blooded tampering. On June 5, 1986, Bruce, 52, came home complaining of a headache. Stella handed him 4 extra-strength Excedrin capsules from a 40-capsule bottle she'd spiked with cyanide, purchased from a chemical supply store under the pretense of killing ants. Within minutes, Bruce collapsed in their trailer, convulsing foam at his mouth, eyes rolling back as cyanide starved his cells of oxygen, causing cardiac arrest. Paramedics rushed him to Harborview Medical Center, where he died within hours, his body pale, lips blue, blood saturated with cyanide. Initially, doctors ruled it emphysema, a natural cause, due to his smoking history, missing the poison's telltale bitter almond odor during autopsy. Stella, feigning grief, stood to lose the $100,000 accidental death payout unless the cause was revived. To ensure this, she escalated her scheme, tampering with 5 additional bottles of Excedrin and Anisin 3, lacing capsules with cyanide mixed with green algae destroyer flecks from her aquarium supplies. She placed these on store shelves in Auburn and Kent, intending a random death to mirror the Chicago case. On June 11th, Sue Snow, a 40-year-old bank manager, took 2 Excedrin capsules for a headache. By 6:30 a.m., her 15-year-old daughter, Haley, found her collapsed in their bathroom, pulse faint, face ashen. Paramedics couldn't revive her. She died at Harborview. Cyanide confirmed during autopsy. Her body reeking of almonds capsules from her bottle laced with lethal doses. Stella's evasion hinged on exploiting the initial misdiagnosis and public panic, but her hubris unraveled her. After Sue's death hit the news, Stella on June 19 called police, claiming Bruce had taken Excedrin from a bottle with the same lot number as Snow's. She handed over 2 tampered bottles, allegedly bought at different times in stores. An improbability given only 5 tainted bottles were found nationwide out of 15,000 screened. This raised suspicion. The odds of her possessing 2 of the 4 known contaminated Excedrin bottles were infinitesimal. Stella refused a polygraph, claiming she was too shaken. While her story shifted, she denied knowing about 2 life insurance policies, later proven forged with Bruce's signature. The FBI's crime lab found cyanide mixed with algae destroyer in the tampered capsules, tracing the algae to a local fish store where Stella bought it, likely crushing it in the same bowl as the cyanide, leaving green flecks. Her fingerprints were on cyanide-related pages in library, books like Deadly Harvest and Human Poisonings, checked out before Bruce's death and never returned. Her daughter, Cynthia Hamilton, sealed her fate in January 1987, telling the FBI Stella had researched poisons for years, tried foxglove on Bruce, causing drowsiness, and discussed killing him to collect insurance for a tropical fish store. Stella's motive wasn't just financial. She was bored with Bruce's sobriety, craving freedom and fun. Her evasion exploited the era's pre-DNA forensics and initial trust in her as a grieving widow. But the circumstantial web, insurance, Algesa, fingerprints, and Cynthia's testimony tightened. The trial, starting April 20th, 1988, in Seattle's U.S. District Court, was the first under the 1983 Federal Anti-Tampering Act, passed after the Chicago Tylenol murders. Prosecutors, led by Assistant U.S. Attorney Joanne Maida, painted Stella as a greedy, calculating killer. They detailed the cyanide's effects: Bruce's convulsions, Sue's collapse, both suffocating as cyanide blocked oxygen metabolism, their bodies shutting down in agony. Cynthia testified about Stella's library research and murder plans, admitting she waited to come forward until Stella failed a polygraph in November 1986, possibly motivated by a $250,000 reward from drug companies. Forensic evidence was damning. FBI chemist Roger Marks confirmed algecid in the capsules, matching Stella's purchase. Her fingerprints on poisoned books were irrefutable. Defense attorney Thomas Hillier argued the case was circumstantial, claiming Stella cooperated by turning in the bottles, but couldn't counter the evidence. On May 9th, after 26 hours of deliberation, the jury convicted Stella on 5 counts of product tampering, including 2 causing death. Juror Murray Andrews noted Cynthia's testimony as pivotal, despite one holdout juror's doubts about the reward's influence. Sentenced on June 17 to 90 years in FCI Hazleton, West Virginia, Stella faced up to life for the deaths and 10 years per tampering count, ordered to pay fine and forfeit assets to victims' families. King County considered state murder charges, but deferred post-sentencing. Stella's fate is confinement, but the case's shadow endured. Now, 82 in 2025. She's eligible for parole in 2018, though her 2017 hearing saw her claim self-defense, a claim dismissed as she never admitted guilt for Sue Snug. A 2001 appeal by attorney Carl Colbert, citing FBI misconduct and withheld documents, failed. 1,000 pages suggested witness tampering, but the Ninth Circuit upheld her conviction. Bruce's family and Sue's daughter, Haley Klein, mourn losses tied to Stella's grief. Sue missed Haley's milestones, her death random yet deliberate. The case, covered by HistoryLink and Greg Olson's Bitter Almonds, spurred tamper-proof packaging laws like blister packs and sealed bottles, now standard. Stella maintains innocence, but her confession to Bruce's murder in 2017 for parole suggests partial truth. Relief comes from her conviction, but unease persists. How did she nearly escape, and what if Cynthia hadn't spoken? Auburn's quiet streets hide the poison's legacy, a reminder of trust betrayed. As rain falls softly, the trailer's silence masks a widow's plot, cyanide's bitter scent fading, but another bottle waits, tampered and deadly. On a shelf unnoticed, shelf unnoticed. In the bustling city of Shanghai, China, Zhu Xiaodong, born on November 28, 1987, grew up in a family marred by instability and neglect, setting the stage for a life of deception and violence that culminated in the chilling murder of his wife, Yang Liping. Zhu's parents divorced in 1997, after which his father started a new family and had more children, while his mother's affection was divided between him and his cousin. As a result, his parents were far from supportive and not a major part in his life. His aunt and uncle, who had played a role in his upbringing, died in a vehicle accident not long after the divorce, leaving his mother to focus her attention on raising their own daughter rather than her son. During high school, Ju was involved in a gang robbery where the police caught him red-handed, an early brush with crime that hinted at his disregard for consequences. Despite his low income and frequent unemployment, Ju attempted to live lavishly. He was picky about food and clothing, frequently went to bars, spent thousands of yuan on a single piece of clothing, gambled on the internet, and accumulated huge debt. He enrolled at Shanghai Nanhu Vocational School, but left at age 19, taking a job as a clerk at a shopping mall. In 2007, he auditioned as a contestant for the reality show My Show, but was eliminated early, returning to his clerk position before resigning and bouncing between other malls. Ju's appearance became his obsession. He exercised rigorously starting in high school, losing 72 kilograms, and once people complimented his new look, it went to his head. He often posted pictures of himself online, asking people to rate his appearance, and spent hours refreshing pages, responding to female commenters. This vanity masked deeper issues, leading to his fateful meeting with Yang Liping. Yang Liping, born only a few days earlier, on November 22, 1987, in Shanghai, was a stark contrast. Shy but gentle and kind, with a small circle of friends who recalled only a single instance of her ever getting angry. She was admitted to and graduated from the Chinese department of Shanghai Normal University, later securing a teaching job at the primary school of the affiliated school of Shanghai Jinyuan Senior High School, where she worked as a Mandarin teacher. Aside from these brief tidbits, not much is known about her background, but her personality made her vulnerable to Ju's manipulation. Ju and Yang met at a high school reunion in 2012, where Ju approached her and initiated a brief conversation before they parted ways. They had another reunion in September 2013, and despite their limited interaction, Ju became infatuated, interested in starting a relationship. According to Ju's recollection, he told her a fabricated story. "I fell in love with you at first sight, but at that time I had a brain tumor, and there was no hope of treatment, so I went to Tibet alone, lived at the foot of the snow-capped mountains, drank snow water, and ate wild rabbit. After waiting for a year, my head didn't hurt anymore, and the re-examination found that I had recovered from the illness, so I mustered up the courage to speak with you." What Ju didn't reveal was that he went on this trip to Tibet in June 2012 with an ex-girlfriend, and after an argument due to his extreme personality, she felt threatened and secretly used her QQ account to contact Ju's father to bring them home and end the trip early. Ju's brief encounter with Yang left such an impression that he got a tattoo reading "Red" and "A Endless Love," John 17, 2012, with a referring to his prior love. On October 25, 2013, Ju and Yang entered into a romantic relationship. The relationship was uneasy from the start, as Ju didn't actually love Yang and engaged in infidelity. The only reason he didn't leave her was because another woman he had his eyes on sternly rejected him. Despite these problems, the two married on May 28, 2016. After the marriage, Ju continued cheating until June 2016, when Yang discovered his infidelity. Ju promised to sever ties with his mistress and even wrote a legally binding document to keep his word. But he broke the promise after just 1 month, leading Yang to discover him cheating again. On August 25, 2016, they went to the Civil Affairs Bureau for a divorce, but it was halted. Ju claimed Yang threatened to kill herself if the divorce was finalized, standing up in the middle of proceedings. Whatever happened, the divorce never went through, and they stayed together, though the marriage was no longer happy, filled with unease and Yang's lack of trust. Things came to a head on October 15, 2016, when Ju and Yang traveled to Hangzhou and had a vicious argument over not booking a satisfactory hotel. The argument resumed at 7:00 a.m. on October 17, and this time, Ju placed his hands around Yang's neck to make her stop talking. Once he let go, Yang lay still on the ground, unmoving, and had urinated. Ju watched her for 3 hours and, determining she was dead, covered her body with a quilt and hid it in their freezer on the balcony of their apartment in Shanghai's Hongkou district. Not long after, Ju logged into Yang's Alipay account and transferred 45,000 yuan, US $6,044.12, into his own bank account. While his wife's body lay in the freezer, Ju used her money to go on a travel spree, visiting Hainan province, the towns of Nanjing and Suzhou in Jiangsu province, and even taking an international trip to South Korea in an attempt to forget about the killing. He posted pictures of his trips online, and while in South Korea on October 24th, he posted a picture of himself at a restaurant table where a woman's hand was visible in the shot. When commenters asked who she was, Joe was unwilling to answer, implying he had brought another unidentified mistress with him, funding the travels with Yang's car. He also used her credit cards to purchase luxury items and daily essentials, booking hotel rooms for affairs, and even bought a round of drinks at a bar with his friend. He withdrew 100,000 yuan from an ATM to spend on himself and personal pleasures. Additionally, he purchased spy and CCTV cameras positioned solely on the freezer, setting up a live feed to his phone so he could watch if anyone entered the house or opened the freezer while he was away, ensuring immediate knowledge if discovered. Ju's deception extended to impersonating Yang on WeChat and Weibo. On November 7th, her mother received a text from Yang. "Mommy, I plan to go out with East on my birthday. Wait for his birthday, and then invite us for dinner." November 22 was Yang's 29th birthday, but there was no sign of her and no celebration. 7 days later, November 28th, was Ju's 29th birthday, and according to plans, Yang's family was to book a restaurant, but Yang changed plans suddenly. When her mother asked why, she said she wanted to travel to Japan's Hokkaido Prefecture or South Korea's Jeju Island. The texts were suspicious. Mommy and East were nicknamed Yang Rarely You. On November 8th, her mother texted, "Call me after class. I want to talk to you. I miss you a little." Yang saw but didn't respond. On November 21st, her pet cat of 10 years died. Her mother broke the news, and Yang responded with a dozen crying emojis before saying she was out of town. On December 2nd, Yang's second cousin, living a 5-minute walk away, saw Ju alone and asked about Yang. He said she finished her shift and was sleeping, then changed the subject. On December 14th, her mother asked where she was and why no calls. Yang refused to explain, claiming her phone was broken. On December 24th, parents had Christmas gifts, waited at the cousins, but Yang was out of town. New Year's plans on December 30th, Ju showed briefly, said he was tired, Yang sleeping. Left in the opposite direction of home. On January 28, 2017, Yang said she was going to Hong Kong with Ju. On January 29, family waited at home, but flight delayed. Yang also made posts on social media as if at Shanghai landmarks or elsewhere. Ju couldn't maintain the charade forever. February 1st, 2017 was her father's 60th birthday. Family prepared to go to her house if she didn't show. Ju confessed to his mother, who convinced him to turn himself in, driving him to the police station. Police entered the apartment, opened the freezer, and found the quilt with frozen food stuck to it. Yang's body was horrific, black and purple, skin dry and cracked, falling off at touch, curled up and thin. The medical examiner confirmed strangulation, ligature marks, visible. Death 3-4 months prior. Ju said on January 31st. He disposed of her cell phones and ID cards in the Suzhou River and tried suicide by hanging on the balcony drying rack, but it broke due to his weight. His grandmother, unable to accept he was a killer, suffered a mental breakdown, fell ill, and died the same day. The trial began November 29, 2017 at Shanghai No. 2 Intermediate People's Court. Ju refused the court-appointed lawyer, hiring his own, likely with Yang's stolen money, and argued crime of passion for lighter sentence, citing remorse and responsibility. If I had the power, I would exchange my life for Yang Lieping. The prosecutor disagreed, noting he kept the body 106 days, used accounts for luxury and travel, posted a pic in South Korea on October 24 with a woman's hand visible, implying mistress, disposed phones he had impersonated to deceit. Cameras on freezer would kill discoverers. He turned in because the ruse failed. If not for the birthday, he'd keep until spring-summer, dispose in field for decay in hot weather, hard identification. Premeditation, bought freezer, September 22nd, 2016. No input from Yang, only fit balcony, useless, claimed for pet snakes, lizards, frogs, but never used. Brought Yang to school, lied about job promotion to Hong Kong, made her resign October 14, so work wouldn't ask. August 2016, almost divorced, purchased 2 true crime novels, mailed to fathers, one case similar including disposed body spring summer. August 23, 2017, guilty, premeditated, remorse fake, death sentence. Appealed, second trial, December 13th, upheld July 5, 2019, executed June 4, 2020. As the rain taps softly against the window, the freezer's hum fades into silence. A wife's frozen gaze dissolves, but another lie stirs. A husband's smile, hiding deadly intent, ready to freeze the next life. On August 22, 1981, 11-year-old Barry James, Bucky Kafart II, vanished from his family's apartment in the 300 block of Texas Street, southeast in Albuquerque, New Mexico, leaving behind a mystery that would haunt investigators in the community for decades. Born on July 15, 1970, Bucky was a small boy, 4'5", 55, 60 pounds, with brown hair, blue eyes, and a love for playing in the dirt with marbles, cars, and trucks. His disappearance, initially framed as a runaway case after a note, was found stating he was going for a bike ride and would be back soon, unraveled into a chilling tale of domestic abuse, parental deception, and a justice system thwarted by time. The case, one of the most infamous unsolved mysteries in Albuquerque, exposes the horrors hidden behind closed doors and the failures of a system that couldn't protect a vulnerable child. Bucky's life was marked by hardship, shaped by a dysfunctional family and personal struggles. His parents, Josephine and Barry James Keffart Sr., had recently moved to Albuquerque from Denver, a city they claimed wasn't good to them. Bucky, the only son and youngest of their 4 children, faced bullying at school for his small stature and severe dyslexia, which made reading and writing a significant challenge. At home, the environment was far Barry Sr., a truck driver, struggled with alcoholism, his binges fueling violent outbursts. Beverly Clark, Bucky's older sister, later revealed that both parents abused all their children, with Barry Sr.'s drunken rages being particularly brutal. In 1981, the family lived in a cramped apartment, their financial and emotional instability compounding the chaos. Bucky, about to enter 6th grade, was described as neglected. His father noted he left in old pants and rotten shoes, hinting at the family's disregard for his well-being. This neglect set the stage for the tragedy that unfolded on the night of his disappearance. The crime signature was its deceptive simplicity, cloaked in a fabricated narrative of a runaway child. According to Josephine and Barry Sr., Bucky left a note on August 22, 1981, saying, "I went down the block. Be back soon. Love, Bucky." He was supposedly going for a bike ride to a friend's house, but never arrived. When he didn't return, Barry Sr. waited 24 hours before reporting him missing, a delay that raised immediate suspicion with lead investigator Marty McGuire. The note, a critical piece of evidence, was never produced. Josephine and Barry claimed it was lost, a claim McGuire found dubious. In 1994, Beverly, then 24, came forward with a devastating revelation. Bucky's severe dyslexia made it highly unlikely he could write such a note, especially with clear handwriting and proper grammar. She recounted a horrific scene from the night of August 22nd. Lying in bed, she heard Bucky screaming and crying for mercy as violent thuds echoed from another room. Barry Sr., drunk and enraged, was beating Bucky with belt buckles, allegedly for stealing a neighbor's chicken. The screams stopped abruptly, and Beverly, terrified, cried herself to sleep. She believed her brother was killed that night. An aunt later corroborated this, stating Josephine confided that Barry Sr. killed Bucky and disposed of his body in a dumpster near their apartment, waiting for the trash truck to haul it away. The explicit violence, Bucky's small body battered, blood likely pooling as blows landed, his cries silenced, paints a grim picture of a child betrayed by those meant to protect him. Authorities suspect his body ended up in a landfill, possibly under what is now the Journal Pavilion, making recovery impossible. The Kephardt's evasion of justice was a masterclass in denial and obstruction, exploiting the era's investigative limitations. Barry Senior and Josephine maintained their story, portraying themselves as grieving parents. Barry Senior told the Albuquerque Tribune in 1981 that he believed Bucky met with foul play, speculating his son might be in a dump or lying on the mesa somewhere, a statement chillingly close to the truth. Their nonchalant demeanor during the investigation, stalling, barely cooperating, and failing to produce the note, frustrated police. McGuire, the lead investigator, suspected the parents from the start, noting their lack of urgency and the suspicious 24-hour reporting delay. However, without a body or physical evidence, he couldn't charge them. The 1980s lacked advanced forensic tools like DNA profiling, and runaways were often dismissed as voluntary disappearances, especially with a note in play. The Kephardt's denials held until 1994, when Beverly's testimony and the aunt's corroboration reignited the case. In 2006, investigators re-interviewed Barry Senior, who admitted to beating Bucky that night before passing out drunk. When asked if he could have killed his son and not remembered, he hesitated before saying, "I don't think so." Who later moved to Farmington, New Mexico, never faced charges due to a 15-year statute of limitations on murder in 1981, which lapsed in 1996. This legal loophole, since abolished, ensured no justice for Bucky, leaving McGuire and the Albuquerque Police Department devastated. The case's unraveling came too late, driven by Beverly's courage, but stymied by systemic failures. Her 1994 statement exposed the abuse and the unlikelihood of Bucky writing the note, shifting the narrative from runaway to homicide. The aunts claimed that Josephine admitted killed Bucky and dumped his body, added weight, but without physical evidence or a body, the case remained cold. In 2006, McGuire, still haunted, pushed for closure, believing he had enough to close the case but not to prosecute. Marlene Lindstrand, the Albuquerque PD Records supervisor, took the case personally, keeping Bucky's photo in her office and celebrating his birthday with ice cream and cake, a poignant reminder of a boy failed by his family and the system. The case's public impact was profound. Albuquerque, already shaken by the 1979 disappearance of Patricia Joan Cheshire and the 1969 Sena children vanishings, feared a serial killer, though Bucky's case pointed to domestic horror. Media, including the Albuquerque Journal and the Charlie Project, kept his story alive, with age-progressed images of 43 years old, though hope of finding him alive faded. Bucky's fate remains a wound in Albuquerque, with no body or closure. Barry Sr., now in his 80s, maintains his innocence in Farmington, protected by the expired statute. Josephine's death closed her accountability. Beverly's revelation, driven by years of fear, gave voice to Bucky's suffering, but couldn't undo the loss. The case, detailed on platforms like Web Sleuths and Find a Grave, underscores the tragedy of domestic violence hidden by lies. Bucky's love for marbles and trucks, his small frame and tattered clothes, haunts those who remember. Relief comes from exposing the truth, but unease lingers. How many other children vanish behind closed doors, their cries unheard? The landfill, possibly Bucky's grave, whispers of secrets buried too deep. As rain falls softly, the apartment's silence masks a boy's screams, fading into the night. Another father's rage simmers, unseen, ready to claim the next victim. On June 26, 2023, Mexican authorities arrested Gualberto Ramirez Gutierrez, the former head of the Federal Anti-Kidnapping Unit under the Attorney General's office, then known as the PGI, in connection with the infamous 2014 disappearance of 43 students from the Ayotzinapa Rural Teachers College in Iguala, Guerrero. This high-profile arrest, coupled with charges against 8 soldiers for enforced disappearance, marked a significant development in a case that has haunted Mexico for nearly a decade, exposing deep-rooted corruption, military collusion, and a botched investigation marred by torture and evidence tampering. The case, one of the most notorious in Mexican history, began on September 26, 2014, when security forces abducted the students from buses, handing them over to the Guerrero's Unidos drug gang, who were believed to have killed and incinerated them. Ramirez's arrest, alongside the soldiers' charges, underscores a chilling narrative of state complicity, with explicit details of violence and cover-up that continue to demand justice. The crime's signature is its brazen execution as a state crime, blending police, military, and cartel collusion to erase 43 young lives. On September 26, 2014, around 9:30 p.m., approximately 100 students from Ayotzinapa, a rural teachers' college known for its leftist activism, were traveling in 5 commandeered buses through Iguala to attend a protest in Mexico City commemorating the 1968 Tlatelolco massacre. These students, mostly in their late teens and early 20s, were intercepted by municipal police, federal forces, and possibly military personnel in a coordinated attack. The students were forcibly removed from the buses, some beaten with batons, their bodies bloodied and bruised as they were dragged into police vehicles. Witnesses reported hearing screams and gunshots as the night unfolded. 6 people, including 3 bystanders, were killed and 25 were injured. The 43 students vanished, their fate initially unknown. According to later investigations, including a 2022 Truth Commission report led by Alejandro Encinas, Mexico's Undersecretary for Human Rights, the students were handed over to the Guerrero's Unidos cartel. The gang, acting on orders possibly tied to mistaken identity or local power struggles, executed them. Remains of only 3 students, Alexander Mora Venancio, Josevani Guerrero de la Cruz, and Christian Alfonso Rodriguez Telumber, were identified through charred bone fragments found in a cocula dump at a nearby river. The explicit brutality involved dismemberment and incineration. Bodies were allegedly burned in a massive fire fueled by tires and gasoline, reducing flesh to ash, bones crushed and scattered to erase evidence. The motive remains murky, with theories suggesting the students were mistaken for rival gang members or targeted to suppress their activism. But Encinas labeled it a state crime, implicating police, military, and government officials in a conspiracy to silence the students. Gualberto Ramirez's interrogation and arrest in 2023 exposed his role in sabotaging the investigation, a cover-up that prolonged the case's mystery and protected perpetrators. As head of the anti-kidnapping unit for the PGA's Special Investigations on Organized Crime, Saido Ramirez was a key figure during the initial probe in 2014. The investigation, led by then Attorney General Jesus Murillo Caram, was riddled with misconduct. Ramirez faces charges of enforced disappearance, torture, and conspiracy for orchestrating a botched inquiry that relied on torture, coerced confessions, and fabricated evidence. In 2014 and 2015, his unit detained over 100 suspects, many from Guerreros Unidos, and subjected them to brutal interrogations. Videos later surfaced showing Ramirez and other officials, including Tomas Zeron de Lucio, former head of the Criminal Investigation Agency, torturing suspects. Methods included beatings, electric shocks, waterboarding, and sexual assault, with one suspect, Felipe Rodriguez Salgado, El Cepillo, beaten and bribed to confess to ordering the students' murders. These coerced statements formed the basis of the government's historical truth, a narrative claiming the students were killed and burned in Cocula, a story debunked by Argentine forensic experts who found no evidence of a fire intense enough to incinerate 43 bodies. Ramirez's actions included staging crime scenes, discarding evidence, and ignoring leads implicating the military, particularly the 27th Infantry Battalion in Iguala, which monitored the students' movements that night. At his interrogation in 2023, though not publicly released, likely saw him deny involvement, as he had faced scrutiny in 2015 for torturing Rodriguez Salgado, leading to a federal judge ordering his arrest in March 2022. Though he evaded capture until June 25, 2023, the explicit torture, suspects bound, shocked, and submerged in water until gasping for air, underscored Ramirez's role in shielding the truth, protecting state actors while families suffered. The perpetrators, including Ramirez and military personnel, evaded justice for years due to systemic corruption and investigative failures. From 2014 to 2018, under President Enrique Peña Nieto, the PGOA's probe was deliberately obstructed. Ramirez's unit mishandled evidence, such as failing to secure the Cocula dump properly, allowing contamination. The military's role was downplayed despite evidence that soldiers were present during the abductions, with real-time intelligence shared with the cartel. A 2016 Inter-American Commission on Human Rights report criticized the government's lack of scrutiny into high-ranking officials, while a 2018 UN report documented 34 cases of torture in the investigation, including beatings, asphyxiation, and psychological torment. Ramirez, who joined the anti-kidnapping unit under President Felipe Calderón, continued his career despite these allegations, exploiting Mexico's culture of impunity. The soldiers, detained in 2023 and held in a military prison, were charged with enforced disappearance, a crime that doesn't expire under Mexican law, unlike murder at the time. Their evasion relied on the military's untouchable status and the government's initial refusal to investigate its own forces. The historical truth narrative pushed by Ramirez and Murillo Caram, arrested in 2022 for similar charges, collapsed as tortured suspects were released, with over 80 of the original 83 arrests dismissed due to tainted evidence. While Ramirez's trial details post-2023 are sparse, his arrest on June 25, 2023, and the charges against 8 soldiers on June 20, 2023, marked a turning point. Ramirez faces enforced disappearance, torture, and conspiracy, accused of orchestrating a cover-up that delayed justice. The soldiers, charged by civilian prosecutors, are linked to the 27th Infantry Battalion, with evidence suggesting they either participated in or failed to stop the abduction. The Truth Commission's 2022 report, cited by Encinas, stated there was no indication the students survived, and the military bore clear responsibility. The explicit evidence includes intercepted communications between the cartel and authorities, showing coordination and forensic analysis of the bone fragments, confirming incineration. Ramirez's role in torturing suspects like Rodriguez Salgado, seen in 40 videos recorded between October 2014 and January 2015, forms the backbone of the case against him. The soldiers' trials, ongoing in 2025, face challenges due to military tribunals' resistance to civilian oversight, but public pressure and international scrutiny, including from the UN and Inter-American Court, keep the cases alive. Families of the 43, marching annually on September 26, demand accountability, their banners stained with photos of the missing. As of August 15, 2025, Ramirez remains in custody, likely at a federal facility in Toluca, awaiting trial. The soldiers, detained in a military prison, face uncertain legal proceedings, with Mexico's military justice system complicating civilian prosecution. The case, covered by outlets like Al Jazeera and NBC Boston, has fueled national outrage, with protests in Mexico City and Iguala exposing distrust in institutions. The students' parents, like Maria Martinez Zeferino, whose son Miguel Angel is among the missing, live with unending grief, their hope dwindling, but resolve unbroken. The case spurred reforms, including stronger anti-disappearance laws, but impunity persists. Only 3 remains identified, no full closure. Relief comes from arrests, but unease lingers. How deep does the collusion run? The cocula dumps ashes, whisper of truths still buried. As rain falls softly, Iguala streets echo with lost voices, buses silent. Another official's badge gleams, hiding complicity, waiting to be unmasked.